Legends of Runeterra is one of the best free-to-play card games, which is extremely generous with the amount of cards you're actually gifted and how easy they are to collect. In order to get a large card collection, you simply need to grind away, but in order to build a solid deck, you need to farm rewards until you can craft a meta deck, and this is where this video helps. In this guide, we're going to take a look at several options to accomplish this goal by suggesting some decks which can easily be upgraded from the starter decks you're given right at the start of the game, making them basically as competitive as possible with the smallest investment. Additionally, lots of the cards that you may have to get in order to build these decks, you will still be using much later on in the game, as most of these cards are relevant in basically a lot of meta decks. As I'm still a small YouTuber, I would super appreciate you subscribing if you do like this video. I read every comment, and this video was actually made in response to a comment I saw from you guys. Remember to turn on the bell notifications too. This video has been done in collaboration with Bomber TV. This deck is Elise Spiders, featuring cards from Noxus and Shadow Isles. Elise Spiders is pretty much what you've already got in the Noxus Shadow Isles starter deck, with just a small tweakings, removing the bad cards and including more commons and rares which make this deck much stronger. The deck is aggro, meaning you'll be playing aggressively to finish the game quick. As a result, many of the cards have small mana costs, basically to have a stronger early game. As you can see, this is reflected by 33 cards costing 3 or less mana. The game plan is simple as you possibly can get in Legends of Runeterra, just deal as much damage in the early game thanks to one-drops such as Precious Pet and other aggressive early units such as Legion Saboteur, then later on burn your opponent with burn spells such as Nox and Favor and Decimate. Burn spells are simply spells that deal damage for those who you're basically wondering what it is. I'm aware that lots of YouTubers use all these words and terminologies that just completely go over some people's head. If you do reach late game, you have Captain Farron who can finish off your opponent with Overwhelm and then the Decimate spells he generates when summoned. At this stage, your opponent should have pretty much very slim or small amounts of Nexus health left, so this is basically a win condition if needed. Elise should not be protected more than usual, just treat her as a normal unit. On games where she does level up, she can actually be quite strong, but again, don't be overprotective against her unnecessarily. Save your spells to take out your opponent's key units, rather than saving Elise. And I know this sounds a bit controversial, basically, even though the deck is named after her, but bear with me here. Focus on having a very good opening hand and mulligan heavy for 1-drops. If you are lucky enough to have 1-drops already, keep them and then mulligan everything else for 2-drops. Mulligan basically means searching for certain cards from your opening hand when you're given the opportunity to remove the ones you don't need, so this will obviously be doing right at the start of the game. It's important to get your opponent's Nexus health as close to 10 or even lower if possible, so don't worry about sacrificing units on attacks if this does lead to them dealing a bit of damage. When you do reach that endgame stage, then you can try and finally burn out your opponent with burn spells such as Nox and Favor, Decimate, and Captain Farron, who I discussed earlier on. So overall, this is a very fast deck, both for winning and losing. So as long as your win rate stays above 50%, then you're good to go. This is Demacia Allegiance, or Mono Demacia, and this is one of the decks which has been staple for Legends of Runeterra in that kind of Demacia mid-range category. This basically means the deck revolves around combat with a strong peak around mid-game. This is actually a fairly aggro version of the deck with no cards costing 6 or more mana. This is a budget version and you can easily look at incorporating elite synergies by adding your Garen, or this can be upgraded to an even more mid-rangey version with cards such as Citria the Bold and Genevieve Elmheart. 2 fantastic exotic cards, and I would suggest removing your Screeching Dragons if you want to fit these cards into this deck. I want to point out that this is the budget version and is actually a starting point for a much stronger version of the deck, and it's actually performing quite well, and it has been performing quite well for quite a while now. The idea is to take as much value trades and gain as much value as possible, either in terms of the cards in the hand or crushing board presence. So basically this means getting preferable battle trades for those who aren't really familiar with what the kind of value trade term means. It's still important to get a good early game in the opener, but not as important as you have the tools to stabilise and regain the board control, either by recovering with Radiant Guardian, who has life steal when summoned after one of your unit's deaths, or punishing the opening attack of your opponent by casting fast spells such as Single Combat and Concerted Strike, which both involve striking your opponent's cards. This should be quite preferable for you, as your Demacia cards love combat and their effects and stats are suited to this. Then later on, you won't have trouble winning by buffing your board with wide buffs thanks to Vanguard Bannerman or for Demacia, as well as pushing for lethal with the finisher, Relentless Pursuit. As your deck is suited to combat, this card triggers a rally so you can attack again, and you should have a lot of buffed up units alive thanks to Bannerman and for Demacia. So this deck is designed for basically introducing beginners to that mid-range strategy in Legends of Runeterra, which in my opinion is the most fun out of the 3 decks that I'm going to be talking about in this video. And finishes like this are exactly why. This is Noxus, Piltover and Zaun Burn, which is another aggro deck. Many beginner decks are aggro as the cards are typically cheaper to craft and the playstyle is simple. Deal as much damage as you can, as fast as you can. Many control boss cards are usually exotic, making them more expensive to craft as a result. The budget rule applies to this deck as well, with a crazy amount of cards being common, 30 in total. It also has a reflective aggro theme with everything but Darius and Decimate costing 3 or less mana. With this deck you want to do as much damage as possible early on, then close the game out with burn spells such as Get Excited, Nox in Favor and Decimate. You have plenty of ways to deal damage as well, with lots of units dealing direct damage to the enemy nexus with their effects, such as Imperial Demolitionist and Boom Crew Rookie. Other cards such as Legion Grenadier and Newscast Salesman incorporate burn damage via Last Breath. This means when the unit dies, or in Newscast Salesman case, his casks die, it will deal damage to the opponent's nexus. So this is a nice alternate way to also deal burn damage quickly to your opponent's nexus. Most of the time you should be able to win by turn 6 when you play a leveled up Darius and go for the winning attack. Darius levels up when your opponent's nexus has 10 or less mana, which gives him a crazy 10 power once he does level up. One attack from him with his Overwhelm is usually enough to win, or at least put you in a very good winning position. Don't be tempted to use Mystic Shot or other removal spells on units. You need them to go directly to burning the enemy nexus. There are obviously exceptions to this rule, but this is generally a pretty good rule of thumb to apply when using this burn themed deck. Again, this is a very fast deck and a pretty fun one to use too, but not so much fun for your opponent. I hope you like that pun. So there we go guys, I had a lot of requests to do another budget or starter themed video, which is actually the type of videos I started creating when I first created this channel back in April. Christ, that feels like ages ago now. So you may have noticed we missed a few regions in this video. Bilgewater and Targon have more complicated playstyles, and beginners simply won't have the cards needed for these regions. I guess some of you expected to see Freljord here. The simple fact is that the mono Demacia deck is such a good deck that it beats any variation of the buff and tough one that features Freljord cards. This analysis has been done by Bomber TV, a Masters tier player which does gameplays at Masters tier level and deck guides just like this one. Link to his channel is in the pinned comment or in the card above. So what is your favourite starter deck? Was it one similar to the ones covered in today's video, or a completely different one? I would love to hear in the comments. Please remember to like, subscribe and turn on bell notifications too. See you next time guys.